Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Woolly Wednesday. I am Cindra Kerscher with the Livestock Conservancy, and I'm the coordinator of our Shave 'em to Save 'em program. And we've got a great talk for you today. With me are actually 4 fiber artists from Shave 'em to Save 'em, and I'm kind of calling them our first official members, or non-official members, I guess really is the truth of it, of our 15 plus club. So all 4 of these gals have completed at least 15 breeds from the Shave 'em to Save 'em passport, and they were early joiners of the program. So they've had lots of experience with the breeds. Some have taken the fiber all the way from raw to completed projects, knitting, crocheting, felting, weaving, a little bit of everything. And so I thought you would love to hear from them today. Please remember that with all of these live chats, you are more than welcome to ask us any questions. So you can go ahead in the comments section, feel free to introduce yourself, say hello, and ask any questions you'd like about Shave 'em to Save 'em or specific projects any of the gals are talking about. So I would like to introduce one at a time here. This is Lori Holder-Webb. Hi, Lori. And Lori's from Massachusetts. And let me unmute you so you can say hello. There you go.
Hello.
All right. I'm going to swap out and introduce Susan. Susan Vanderford. And Susan, remind me where you are from. Texas?
Texas. Yep.
Texas.
From Texas.
That's what I thought.
Hey, everybody.
And we'll take it over and introduce Kathy O'Reilly. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
And Kathy, you're in Oregon.
I'm in Oregon.
Okay. And as is Diane, who's not yet back from her door. So we'll introduce Diane in a second here. I'm going to open this up a little bit so we can see everybody. Here we go. Lots of great faces. I can hear a door. I think Diane's coming back.
I'm so sorry. My neighbor's cows are out and they're in the road and life. So
that's farm life.
Farm life.
Yeah, they've been chasing them all morning. I thought it was going to be late. So I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm ready.
That's okay. I had just done a quick intro of everybody so that they could say hello. So this is Diane Barrows. Diane is also in Oregon and her neighbor's cows are out.
Real life.
real life right here. So you all joined Shave 'em to Save 'em, I want to say 2019, right? Early 2019, approximately.
I joined in 2020.
Me too.
2020. Okay.
I joined in 2019 in the spring.
In the spring, yeah. I thought you. And Diane, you joined pretty early on as well. I thought. Yeah. Okay. So, quick background questions for you. How did you all discover the program?
Do you want to start with Kathy?
Sure.
Well,
So I've only been spinning since 2016, and I was looking for better, nicer yarn, what I was doing. So early on, I discovered CVM. Love it. I love the elasticity of it. And I actually bought a fleece in July of 2020, and it was a Shave 'em to Save 'em person, and that's how I found it. And then I was like, oh wow, this is great, because there were so many more things to try. I was really excited.
So you actually found out about the program from a fiber provider?
Yes.
Awesome. And then you joined?
And then I joined.
Fantastic.
And then it's been an obsession. It's really been
no.
I've heard that.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Diane, okay, Lori, go for it.
Oh, okay. I had been making felt, like wet felt, for several years. I actually don't live very far from the now defunct New England Felting Supply. What a tragedy that was when they closed shop. But I really felt like there was probably more to life than Merino, and had somehow, I don't even remember how I wound up with a copy of the Fleece and Fiber source book, but I got a hold of that thing and just went, whoa, and earmarked all of the stuff that I would really like to try at some point, and was at Mass Woolcraft that spring looking for something, suitable, maybe out of the book. And I came across Ashford Heights Farm, their stand. They do Leicester Longwools. And I was talking to the shepherd there and, saying that I was really interested in kind of branching out. And she just lit up and said, have you heard of Shave 'em to Save 'em? And the next thing I know, I had 2 bags of Leicester Longwool roving and a whole sheaf of paperwork. And then the rest is history.
Nice. Susan, what about you? How did you hear about the program?
So 2020, we were all home, obviously, and something on my Facebook feed came across of Fiberfest 2020. It was gonna be virtual, and I've always wanted to go to like one of the Fiberfests up on the East Coast, and never gone because you had to fly in and hotel. And
Right, Beth.
So I was like, oh, this one's virtual. Let me check it out. So I'm on there, and there's some great stuff on there. But I kept going to some of the vendors, and I kept seeing SE to SE, and I'm like, what the heck is that? So I had to Google that. Which led me to the Livestock Conservancy website. And then I was like, okay, this is cool. Let me try this thing because we're all home and what else am I going to do? And then I ended up getting laid off. So I had a really lot of time on my hands to really work through it. So
Nice.
kind of a quick tutorial, but I kind of jumped in real fast. So it's been super fun too.
Great. Good. Glad you found it. Diane?
My sister told me about it. She's a spinner, and I was a relatively new spinner, and I just jumped in the deep end. No life jacket, no anything, and it was great. The early challenges were that we were using the directory, and you'd had to email people, and that was really the only way to find things because people weren't posting on Facebook
Right.
yet, myself, and people weren't keywording SE to SE on Etsy yet because they didn't know to do that, and so it was really hard to find things. But so I just bought everything I found right away. As soon as I found one, I just bought it.
Of course.
You're a hoarder.
I even got in on some Santa Cruz from the original flock right off the bat, and it's still preciously stored. And I knew I needed to be a better spinner before I did it. So anyway, I've just learned so much from it. So
Wow.
Yeah. So I have noticed on Etsy, well, I've been following the program for a couple of years now, and I have noticed that I'm starting to see more and more providers either list SE2 or SE2 SE. So yeah, I think that is an extremely helpful.
I messaged a bunch
Definitely.
of providers early on and suggested that they do that for that reason, so that people could find them, and just to try to sort some of that out from the rest of it. And then some of them were putting really good backgrounds on so you could see it. You could see the program on there, which was great.
And
I was in on the early side with Diane too, and it was a huge issue to actually hook up with the fiber providers if you were not at a physical festival. And I just wanted to jump in real quick and say this because I was more involved with the Ravelry Shave 'em to Save 'em group, and there were a lot of very active postings for fiber and yarns there, and I think there continue to be so that's another place people can look.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Lori, because this is live on Facebook, of course, and it doesn't get shown on Ravelry. So maybe not everybody who's in the Facebook group actually is aware of the Ravelry group as well. So yes, there are different providers and different artists in the Ravelry group than there are in Facebook, but there's also a lot of crossover. So
Maybe somebody will post the link on the Ravelry group so that those people can find this too if they're not aware of it.
I will do that.
thank you. I was going to say, if somebody doesn't beat me to it during this broadcast, then I'll do it after.
Okay, yeah, okay, great. It'll wind up there today one way or another. Sorry,
Exactly.
Kathy, I cut you off
No,
a minute
it's okay.
ago.
even just a year ago when I started, you still had to ask. So like I would go on Etsy and find things that looked good. And then I would say, are you an SE2SE? And they would go, yes, I'll send you. But they weren't putting it on the site. So I just routinely ask because people, and I think actually I had one that said, no, what's that? So we sent them off to it and they came back and said, well, I am now.
I think it took a little while to
got Ted Sartell, the source for Oxford yarn. I'm responsible for that. I actually had run across his yarn in a small shop in Peterborough, New Hampshire. and they actually had a little wall of like local fiber providers. And I bought a couple of bundles of his Oxford, dyed nice mill spun stuff. And like later on, about 6 months later, is when I got involved in Shaving to Save Him. And I emailed him and said, Ted, I got your yarn from the Nitty Gritty. Are you a member of Shaving to Save Him? He says, I keep hearing about it. I said, really? There are a lot of people looking for Oxford yarn. You will have a market.
I'm the one who posted his birds project in the barn because they had done that little nest in the barn out of his Oxford. And
oh my gosh.
This is their project.
That's cute.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, the thing is, I think it took a while to gain momentum. So when it's new, it's still frustrating because it's like anything else. There aren't enough people on board. And so you have a little bit of success, but not great success. And once it started gaining momentum and people saw the value of it, then everybody wants to be on board. Then it's fun. So it's a lot easier for the newer people to find things now than it was for us when we were navigating the more difficult waters of that. So
back in the day, walking uphill both ways.
What were you going to say, Susan?
I was just going to say, I came on like March, April 2020, and I really had no problems finding anything.
Oh, that's great.
Going through WAFA, the Wool and Fiber Arts on Facebook, but then also kind of getting connected through Shaving to Save Them. And then since I'm in Texas, there's a whole lot of providers here as well for many different breeds. So just connecting with all of them was really easy. And then just even, asking the hive mind, does anybody know where you can find Oxford or Southdown or any of that kind of? Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you get like 20 links in 20 minutes and you're like, whoa, okay, cool.
That's one of the things, Susan, everybody, that I appreciate so much about the group is that you guys are so supportive of each other and really do ask those questions. And I don't have to, as a moderator, we don't have to answer those questions because you guys are on it all the time, providing sources for people or tips for how to handle certain, challenging fleeces or techniques.
Supporter sounds so much nicer than enabler, which is how I always think of it.
Whatever works.
I think it's interesting early on too. Those conversations that we had between providers and spinners and people who were using the yarns, because there was it was like a disconnect. People had fiber, but they've never actually had anybody do anything with it before. It sat in a bag in the barn, or it went in the wool pool, or whatever happened to it. They just didn't know what to do with it. So there was a lot of misconception as to what a spinner, especially, and I'll just speak to the spinner's part because the weaving and knitting is a different category. But there was irritation on the part of spinners getting wool that was not processed for or shorn for a spinner. And so we started those conversations of, okay, what is it that the spinners are expecting? What's your dream fiber look like? And then what, as a provider, what are your challenges? Because spinners didn't know that you couldn't coat certain sheep, and spinners didn't know a lot of things. And then the providers didn't know that getting a bag of stuff that wasn't well skirted is not what a spinner is wanting. And so that disclosure in the providers of, hey, this has got a lot of VM in it, but if anybody wants it, here you go. Then you know what you're up for. And I think that was a really big breakthrough and not being irritated back and forth. There was a little bit of that period of time where people were frustrated. But then once we got past that, now people routinely list what's going on with their fiber. And you can make the decision to get it or not. And that's fine. Some people don't care. And some people want pristine. So that really, really helped in those early days.
Well, the Livestock Conservancy basically made a market where no market existed before. I mean, there was a market 100, 150 years ago, right? Before the Industrial Revolution put a lot of our breeds out of work. But, livestock, I've always been awestruck. I'm a retired business professor, and I've always been fascinated with what the Livestock Conservancy did here, because with a relatively small investment, they caused an entire market to coalesce and come into existence. And it's just from a business standpoint, the efficiency with which this was carried out was stunning. And it did, as you said, Diane, there were a lot of information asymmetries because, we've got spinners who are used to spinning the easy stuff, and now they're branching out. They don't know what to expect, and the fiber providers don't know what the spinners want. And I remember a lot of conversations online with people who were, as you said, frustrated, saying, listen, okay, these shepherds have never had the opportunity to sell their wool before. That's the whole point of this program, is to hook us up. So we need to talk, and have some patience with each other. And that was huge.
It was
good.
Educational piece for providers, for farmers was much needed, I think. And you guys, the community, again, you provided it. It was fantastic for them and for yourselves to get better quality. If you wanted better quality, some people actually really do want the less expensive, but you have to work a little harder for it. And the great thing about this program is that there's providers offering both. So it's not that you have to pay extreme top dollar for a fleece if you don't want to do it. Yeah, great. Let's pivot and talk projects and breeds. Who wants to talk about either most challenging breed, favorite breed you've gone back to multiple times, breed you'll never work with again? No, let's skip that part. There can't be any of those.
Yes,
she probably takes turns on this, Kathy.
I have done, actually I've done 22 of the 23 breeds. I cannot find Wiltshire Horn. It's just not out there. I'll just say, I don't think I'll be buying the hair breeds again. It was just a lot of work because you had to hand pick all those hairs out. Once you got down to the fiber, it was okay, but just all picking out all that hair. I was surprised. So I came in and I'd done a lot of Merino and BFL, and I had already done some Jacob, Shetland, CVM, and some Black Welsh Mountain. So I'd done a little, but when I got into the breeds, I found I just love down. Everything that has a down kind of wool, it's just so much fun to spin, and the resulting yarn is bouncy, and I just loved it. The surprising one for me was Navajo churro. I don't know if I lucked into a great supplier or what, but my Navajo churro was so soft and just really lovely.
Wow.
And I think because I did, and I'm going to turn around here for a second. I did one of the multiple breed. So I did all 20 breeds are in this. So it's 42 different fibers. So I have a lot of duplicates in here. So, and all of them are from they're all a different fiber. So I think there's 36 vendors. But the thing I found was there's so much variation within the breeds. Like I had Jacob that was like a down, and then I had a Jacob that was almost like spinning alpaca. It was so fine and long. So that was, I think, my biggest learning thing was because when you're buying top, which is what mostly I started with, it's all the same. It's kind of flat, but every one of these has a personality. And so a sheepinelli, that's right. I did I ordered some Gulf Coast native. I think I got 3 different ones of that. And I had one that absolutely refused to be spun like worsted. It wanted to be a thin, like sock yarn. It just wouldn't spin thick. And so it was that kind of thing. It was learning how you kind of, when you're dealing with individual sheep, like I was doing, you're dealing with personalities, really. And that was really interesting to learn. So for going back, I have gone back to Tunis again. I have had good luck and bad luck. I don't want to say bad luck, but I've had some that was like, oh, I want this again. And then it's like, oh, this isn't the same thing I spun before. My first Shropshire was just so snowy white. And I've done 2 other Shropshires. and not snowy white. As a matter of fact, one was a lamb fleece, and I think that little ewe must have lived in a mud puddle, because I lost 50% of the weight just on the wash.
Wow.
It was just so dirty.
That's huge.
But again,
loss.
I will say that the vendor said, "Hey, this is a dirty fleece."
Mhm.
So it was. I had really good luck, and I've just been amazed at the differences in all the things that I've done. And once I spin the yarn, it's not like with top where you can go, okay, I'm going to make this, right? And so I'm going to order some merino and I'm going to make this. No, the yarn's going to tell you what it wants to be.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice right there.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness that folks need to know coming in. Yeah. Anybody else about favorites or least favorites, or what you've returned to more than once?
I keep coming back to Shetland. So when I started with the program, I was a beginner spinner. I just really kind of started. So I was using the program not just to learn about all the different breeds, but to learn how to spin. And I totally agree with Kathy that, and it was great for a learner because you just spin it the way it wants to be spun. You're not trying to force it into something.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going with it and seeing what it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the yarns I had a lot of fun with because I just let it do its thing. Like the Santa Cruz, I got the most amazing Santa Cruz, and it spun like it was like butter in my hands. It was so wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But the Shetland, I just keep coming back to it. I just really enjoy it, and I've purchased 2 fleeces from a Texas provider. One in 2020, one in 2021, and I think I'm gonna. Her fleeces are just great. I'm super excited because we've only communicated via Messenger, and in October they're having the Texas Fleece and Fiber Festival, and so I actually get to meet her. We're super excited. We're gonna meet each other finally.
Nice.
Nice.
And so I keep going back to Shetland. The Hog Island, I was really surprised how much I enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Almost as much as the Santa Cruz. And even the Tunis. I liked the Tunis. It wasn't my super favorite, but I made a shawl of all 4 of those. So I brought it here. So it's just a triangle shawl, but it's so warm. And so I have the Santa Cruz and then the Shetland and then the Hog Island and then the Tunis at the very bottom.
That's gorgeous.
And it's so warm.
Jinx.
It's my favorite thing. I can only wear it for like 2 months in Texas, but it's so awesome.
I bet it looks awesome spread out over the back of the sofa though. In the meantime,
it does. I just kind of made it up as I went. It was just kind of thing. And
beautiful.
then I took all my Longwool breeds, and I made a pillow. And so I've got this is churro and caracal, and then the back is all Leicester Longwool, and I even have like a little caracal tuff on the button.
I love
Lovely.
And it was
Very clever.
Just everything. Again, I was learning, so all my yarns kind of came out the same size. So it made it really easy to make projects that all kind of went together. And it was, I'm a knitter. I've been knitting for a really long time, way longer than I've been spinning. So trying to make things specifically for something in mind has been really fun. I know I've got some CVM, not CVM, I'm sorry, Gulf Coast native that I dyed up because it was white. I dyed it blue, and then I really want to make a pair of thrummed mittens. I haven't done thrum mittens yet, so.
Yes.
And that's how I like to project. I like to try different things and different techniques, and some things I'm like, oh, that was cool, and some things like in Tarnsia knitting, I will never, ever, ever, ever do again. I did it once for a friend for a baby blanket, and I said never again. But I haven't done thrummed. I haven't done a whole bunch of stuff. So I really enjoy kind of making things now. It kind of puts an extra level of fun on things. And I mostly gift things. So it kind of makes it more of a gift if I've spun it myself. But just having all these different breeds, and now I'm going to full fleeces and some of them I'll process on my own. Some of them I send to a mill. I love CVM. I have 2 fleeces, but I'm terrified of processing it myself. So I've sent those to the mill just because it's so fine. I don't want to mess it up. So But the Shetlands I'll do on my own. I've done some Icelandic on my own. Not a SE2 SE1, but that's another long wool one that, or a.
It's a good decision. There's really fine fleeces. If you don't process them just right, you wind up manufacturing nets and oils while you are.
That's true.
Yeah,
so
it's just so nice and springy. It's such a good fleece. I just didn't want to mess it up, so I sent it to the professionals.
Good choice.
But I've been doing the Shetland on my own. Right now, I'm almost done with a cow from my 2021 Shetland fleece from Don Ladd was the sheep's name. And that's the other thing for me. I love knowing the sheep's name. I don't know if anybody else is like that, but I love that.
Absolutely.
And she'll send me pictures of the sheep. So then I have like this photo album where it's like, here's the sheep, here's the dirty fleece, here's the clean stuff, here's how I processed, here's how I spun it, this is what it comes out as, and then here's the knit thing that I got. And I love that kind of thing where it's...
You say, here's Don Ladd around my neck.
Right. Well, and I'm excited because I'm almost done with it, which means when I go in October, hopefully it'll be cold enough for me to wear it, and then I can like show off Don Ladd while I'm there at the festival. So
Nice.
It's funny because I do exactly the same thing. I don't get very many pictures of them, but I do the same thing where I track it from the get-go. And I also have switched almost exclusively to fleeces, even not even partial fleeces, because I've had some trouble with partial fleeces and I don't know what part of the sheep I'm getting.
Right.
So I've gone to whole fleeces.
I had gotten, maybe this speaks to like some of the challenges, and this is from a new spinner and somebody who really at that time really didn't know much about how to process fleeces. I was still learning. I had gotten a partial CVM fleece from a provider, and it came in and I tried to wash it and I could not get this yellow line out of it no matter what I did. And I was just like, is it canary? I was posting pictures on Facebook, like, what is this thing? And the funny part was the other half of the fleece went to another person, and she saw my post on the WAFA page, and we figured out through private messenger that we'd gotten the same fleece from the same provider, just half of one and half of the other. And they made it right. They gave us our money back because it ended up just being a canary line, and we just couldn't get it out no matter what we did. And so they were really great, but it was frustrating not having known what to do with it. Like, am I doing something wrong? Am I, but then having that that support group online to be able to like, help, what do I do?
Nice.
I find that my favorite, my preference depends on what I'm going to do with it. So I got into this through felting originally. And then as soon as I, perused the passport and the list, I realized, okay, some of these things are not going to felt. So I better learn how to spin. And somewhere along the line, I developed the hobby of purchasing whole fleeces and processing them from raw. So if, my preference, if what I want to do is make felt, I want the Longwools. They make fantastic felt. The Fleece and Fiber source book, I have the highest regard for the authors of that, but neither one of them are felters, and you can tell. Because the information on felting in that is not correct. It's correct on the down braids, but it lists the Longwools as reluctant felters, and that's just not true. So I love making felt out of Longwool. If I'm going to spin, Jacob or Shetland are my faves. And if I'm going to be processing whole fleeces, I love processing Jacobs because you get to make all these, first of all, the sheep are also felty. You have no idea what you've got until you get it clean. And then you're like, wow, look at all these colors. And then you get to make those decisions. Like, am I going to break this apart into different colors? Am I going to blend it? Am I going to wind up spinning this into a gradient? Am I going to have mini skeins? Am I going to do barber poles? The options are fantastic. They're absolutely wonderful.
Nice. Diane?
Well, I got into this program with less than zero knowledge. Well, I won't say that. 0.1 knowledge of sheep breeds, which is really funny because when we moved to Oregon, which was almost 30 years ago, We did it by the recommendation of some friends who have a large meat sheep operation here. And so one of my first experiences was feeding bummer lambs. And then the second one was on shearing day when we came and helped stomp wool into huge bags, and you come out just a sweaty lanolin mess after jumping in these bags. And so here I'm watching this go to the wool pool. And as a 5+ decade knitter, I've seen wool on the label of stuff, and I had no idea that wool wasn't just wool.
Right.
And so here I'm expecting that these meat sheep things are going into the wool that I'm knitting with, and it never occurred to me that there were so many breeds. So then you go to the fair and you see all these different things, but they're still basically meat sheep because these are 4-H animals that are going to be sold at auction. So then you see these others and you think, oh, there's other sheep, and you see them out in the fields every once in a while, but still I had no idea, no concept whatsoever that there were all these different breeds of sheep. So right off the bat, you start seeing that certain ones you're familiar with. You know this coat, Jacob, the coat of many colors, and Shetland, and you've heard of Navajo churro because you've seen rugs, and so certain things. But Florida cracker, I'd never heard of a Florida cracker. It sounds like something you either eat or explode, and some other ones I just wrote down so I wouldn't forget, like CBM. It just sounds like something from another planet. So I started getting into these, and I realized I was afraid that there was not going to be a supply. I forgot that there's always next year, and then more people were going to be joining. So I'm ordering all this stuff, and as I'm spinning through it as a relatively new spinner, I'm doing exactly what Kathy was talking about. What does this want to be? It doesn't want to be what I thought it was going to be. And so here I have this basket over there behind me, all full of skeins of yarn, all completely different. But it's like a wonderful visual reference. When you say Jacob, I know exactly which skein of yarn that is, and I can go pick it out of that thing. And it's my visual encyclopedia of, oh, this was Jacob. This was my experience. It all comes right back to mine. So it was just great to jump in like that. And I did not ever want to raise sheep. I still don't want to raise sheep. Having helped with that process at their sheep ranch and seeing how much work it was, and the challenges and foot rot, and they're vaccinating, and that was not what I wanted to do. But the second one was that my daughter took care of the neighbors' sheep and their 4-H sheep one year, and the sheep broke out while we were taking care of them and gorged themselves on grain. So here's these dying sheep everywhere, and I had to call a 4-H leader, have them come. So my second sheep experience was being drenched in Pepto-Bismol, taking care of all these sheep. And my daughter said, well, you can cross sheep rancher off my list of things I want to be. So I decided we're a sheep-free zone, and we are not going to do the raising. However, I think they're adorable, and I love them now that I'm not the one having to do the work. And I'm so appreciative of those people who will do the work so that I can do the fun part for me, which is the spinning. So that's, it was a bad experience that made me realize that was not what I needed to get involved in. But this part of it, this love I have came from watching the spinners in the guild at the fair and thinking, I want to do that when I grow up. And so when the last child moved out, I was grown up and started to learn to spin. So been lots of fun surprises, but also then knitting with those or weaving with those. I'm a relatively new weaver now. And so now I see all these possibilities, and there just aren't enough hours in the day, so.
Right.
I'm still teeter-tottering on that two sheep or not two sheep. That is the question. I live in Texas, and I have a horse, and I've got property, so it's kind of like, well, I've worked with cattle before. Sheep don't really scare me, but do I really want to do that? Would I rather just somebody else do that part? So
good company for your horse.
Actually, no. Some of the feed you can't mix. Some of the feed and vitamins you can't mix between the two, so you have to be really careful. And parasites too.
Oh, then an alpaca, right? Because I know people keep alpacas with their horses. I've seen it.
Yes, actually,
Yeah,
alpacas
so-
are really good herd defenders. So
Yeah, exactly. Give your horse a little rest. It doesn't have to worry about looking out. I think you should have like 3 alpacas for sure.
I'm a hiker too, so just the thought of giving that alpaca a job to like carry my pack.
You could have the alpaca trek with you?
I'm going to rope you guys back in.
How can you not?
Lasso.
Well, mine is I want to spend my time spinning, not taking care of the flock. So I'm very appreciative that there's a balance here. These people, I justify it by saying these people need someone to sell to. So that's me.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
How much did you want? Let me send it in.
And they are so grateful to have a market now.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have just been wonderfully excited and fabulous and exploratory and teaching them as well. I mean, yes, they know how to raise sheep and they know how to take care of sheep and sell sheep, but the fiber, maybe not everyone knew how to process that properly or shear it properly or sell it. And you guys have really, the community at large, the SE2 community, has done such a great job helping the providers, which is really why we started this program to begin with. I mean, we love that the fiber artists are having so much fun with it, but we really needed to, like Lori said in the beginning, make a market for the wool for the farmers so that we can continue to enjoy and appreciate these breeds.
Well, and this is how it becomes a sustainable market because it is fun. And it is, I was really thrilled when you guys discovered that you were going to be able to extend the program past its original deadline.
Me too.
Because people like filling out the passports. They like taking a picture of the passports. And I mean, it's like the Tour de Fleece, right? You're like, woo, I've got my thing here. And everybody goes, ooh. And, it just feels really good. And you feel like you're part of a community. And that's how you make the long-term market for the, for the shepherds and the fiber, suppliers and mills. Oh, you've got your passport all ready to. Nice.
When you do that, when you print the next one, I need more pages. I'm all out of pages to put my stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Diane just showed, it looks like she's ordered multiple versions of the same fiber, filling her pages with stickers. And we've actually had fiber artists actually order another passport so they could just start again. So that's definitely feedback that's good to hear, that you guys would like bigger pages, because by the time we come around to the third year anniversary, we'll be looking at, what things we need, what improvements or tips we need to make.
Well, something that we haven't exactly touched on is that I came into this, I will admit that my motivation was not to save rare breeds of sheep.
Okay.
Well, but to be honest, I didn't have the love of sheep that made my heart twinge when I thought about losing them. However, having spun some of these and knitted with them and held them and fondled them, I realized that it's not just so that I can get the fiber. I don't want these fibers to go away.
Right.
So it's changed me in that way, that I didn't know that I loved some of these things. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And also you go to the yarn store. Now we have a destination yarn store here in our town, and you're looking at labels and you see Leicester Longwool and you go, oh, I know what that is. It just gives you a whole new frame of reference, and to help educate some of the girls that that work in that yarn store, when they don't really know what they're talking about. They're very well educated on yarn, but they don't know about the breeds. So it's really, really been fun. And now, I don't want those poor little Shetlands, anything to happen to them. So.
That's beautiful feedback.
I think, on the educational side for me, so I'm actually a director of education for a Living History Museum here in Texas.
Oh, cool.
And so we cover like 200 years of Texas history, and we've got purple houses and pigs and chickens, and actually some of our chickens are on the Livestock Conservancy website. And one of my employees and myself were thinking about trying to put sheep into the mix as part of the Livestock Conservancy herd, but just for educational purposes. But from that standpoint, again, I didn't have this job when I started Shaving to Save Them, but I've also come through that as well. Like, this is so cool that not only am I doing this fun thing, but it's also a part of history. It's a part of what the country was about, because most of these breeds were so prolific back 150 years ago, and now they're not. And how does that relate to what I do for living history? So for me, it's a really interesting tie-in, and I also sort of kind of get to bring my hobby to work. So
Gulf Coast native would be an easy sell for that.
I know. My employee, she just bought a bunch of, her and her friend just bought some Navajo churro. So they'll be processing, and I think they're going to be shaving to save them providers soon once they've gone through one cycle with shearing. But she put a whole packet together for me of how we could have Gulf Coast native sheep on the property. So
nice. It's so much fun to spin too.
Yeah, I love it. That was a great spin. And again, I was able to pull a Texas provider. So that for me, that was really cool to be able to have that here and have that resource here. But yeah, I'm a history person. So being connected to that through what I'm doing is really special.
One of the things on the education side that I think I didn't know till I started doing this is how much of the wool, for example, that's on Etsy isn't from the United States. So you get on there, like Shetland, for example, they're everywhere here in Oregon. It's like a lot of them come from Europe. And the same with when I was doing the Downs and having some trouble getting them, the South Down and the Oxford and the Suffolk, which isn't on this one, but a lot of that wool is actually coming out of England and not the United States. So I had to start being really careful and looking at the sources of the wool that I was buying. It's just something that's worth paying attention to.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Kathy, because that is important to us. Of course, you can order wool from anywhere you want to if you want willing to pay the shipping charges, but the fiber providers that are selling American raised wool, those are the ones that are most important to the Livestock Conservancy, because we are trying to conserve the breeds on our conservation priority list that are here in the States. There are other organizations in other places, in Canada, in the UK, they have their own rare breeds organizations, and they're working hard to save those breeds over on those shores as well. But these breeds on our conservation priority list, if you can get them from the US, that is definitely our preference. And I believe it's actually in the rules of the program too. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it is.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah,
I remember this. This makes me think of one of the things that I love most about this program. I mean, other than getting to sample all of the cool breeds and, stickers in my passport, is that connection. I live in Western Massachusetts, and Eastern Mass, where Boston is very, very built up. But Western Mass is largely agricultural. The towns out here are either 200-year-old mill towns or they're 400-year-old farm towns. And Western Mass loves its farmers. This is where the CSA concept got its start, in Western Massachusetts. And, and it's really important for a lot of people who choose to live out here that they be connected to the land and to the farmers. We've got a lot of agricultural conservation easements and stuff like that. And the thing about Shave 'em to Save 'em that is great is having that feeling of being connected to the shepherd and to the sheep, So, like, I bought a whole fleece from Whispering Pines, Shetland. It was from Susan. I got a picture of Susan. And actually, a year ago, when Jen was posting Shearing Day or something like that, I PM'd her because, like, halfway through the video, I was like, "Oh, that's Susan, isn't it? I recognize that wool." And knowing the names of the sheep that I came from, and more importantly, knowing the names of the shepherds, because I could tell you for any item in my Shave 'em to Save 'em inventory, I know exactly who I bought that from and where and when, and whether I've gone back to them for more, and then there's those ongoing relationships. My first premium that I took on my first five projects was a bag of Lincoln Longwool locks, which was so much fun, which Susan, I thrum knitted those into a collar and put it on a felt vest and wore it to Rhinebeck. and had constantly had people, total strangers, coming up wanting to stroke my chest.
Is that handy?
Because I could like, oh my God, these Lincoln locks are so awesome. But what, that was my project for Lincoln, and then I turned around, and next time Emmeline Long, who is the one who owns Orchard Longview, Lincoln's, posted that she was going to be sharing, I contacted her and ordered a whole fleece, and so I really know exactly where this wool is coming from, and that feeling of connectedness is huge. I mean, it's really intangible, but it turns out to me to be a really big deal. I wasn't expecting that.
I think I wasn't expecting to.
But I'm sure that the providers definitely appreciate it.
I think I wasn't expecting to become fearless. I've had it all over the spectrum of fleece and locks and roving, and you get it and you try something and you think, okay, that's not working. And so distribute it, comb it, do something to it. It didn't wash out the first time, try it again, just that, there's more wool next year. There's more wool available. So just go for it and try whatever you need to do and learn. And so my whole thing was, I was not going to treat them, like gold. Maybe like silver, but not like gold. So they weren't going to be so precious that I was terrified to do anything with them. I was going to learn from the process. There were some I saved back because I started to do something like, I don't know what I'm doing. And now I can go with confidence into those and take care of them. So that was really, it was a breakthrough for me to just not be afraid to do what the fleece wanted to do. I did have one really bad experience, but through no fault of anybody except my own ignorance. And it was hilarious. So I had I think it was Barbados black belly.
Oh dear.
Well, that's exactly. Okay. So that's, oh dear is my, exactly. So I'm washing this very carefully because it was really dirty, and I'm being super careful, and it just felted into a mess. I couldn't pull stuff out of it. I couldn't do anything with this, and I was careful. So I thought, okay, how do I make a project out of this? So I thought, okay, I'll felt it purposely over a bowl into a little project and have a bowl, and I'll just set it out and have it be a bird's nest or something.
I remember when you posted that. You posted that on Facebook. It was gorgeous. And
no, that was not mine.
The little
was not yours?
Because I could not make it felt anything. I put soap on it, and I rubbed it, and I scrubbed it, and I did stuff to it, and it would just go off the bowl.
So
I have this bag of stuff that's going to be my project. I tried. So it wanted to felt all by itself, but it did not want to be encouraged to felt. Sorry.
That was the undercoat, probably. Yeah.
It's hilarious. So that one was an epic fail, but I learned something. So it was a fail as far as a finished product, but it was a learning experience. Now I know I would do it differently, and I would probably de-hair it before washing next time. If there were going to be a next time, which there might not be, because I want to save that precious Barbados black belly for others.
That's so funny. I mean, because there absolutely was somebody who had taken Barbados black belly and felted it. Basically it was the undercoat with hair sticking out, and felted it into a birdhouse.
Yes.
So there's this tiny little birdhouse on Facebook, and everybody was awestruck.
Well, that was probably where I got the idea, because I was frustrated. It just was hilarious, though. I ended up laughing. I showed it at our guild and I said, I want you to see what I've been working on. And they were all kind of looking at me like, what is that?
So have any of you had success with the hair breeds? Have any of you done a project that you?
I haven't tried it yet.
I didn't know this.
I've still got a couple left, and my problem is I just don't know what I'm going to do with it when I'm done. Because I like to make things out of whatever I've spun up, and I don't know what to do with it.
I felt like it was a sign that some sheep are born to be eaten. They're Euro sheep rather than yarn sheep.
I have done both the Barbados black belly and the St. Croix, and
Wow.
the first thing is I had to wash it because they're pretty dirty, but then I have to go in and pull out hair, and you got to get down, if you're going to spin it, you got to get down to like tweezers pulling out the hair. So I have spun about half an ounce of each of them. And it's really very short fiber, so you're inchworming it. I just did it to say I did it, but I haven't knitted it into anything. But I don't want to say it's an okay fiber, but it's not as rough and coarse as I would have thought it would be once you get the hair out. But it's just way too much work for a spinner.
Well, mad props to you. I mean, that's epic.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop.
Yeah, I'm just stubborn.
I'm going to wash it and stuff it into something so it's identifiable as the stuffing.
There you go.
Or leave it out for the birds. You know, I just might leave it out for the birds next spring and have them make their own projects out of it.
This is great feedback for me. So I definitely need to reach out to the Facebook and the Ravelry groups and find out who has had some success with the hair breeds, because I know it exists. I mean, back during the sheep species chats, we interviewed Will Houston, who raises Barbados black-belly sheep, and he has an artist contact in New York, a professional artist who has done some beautiful felting with that fiber. And I know that I've seen other people do spin something less fine, like maybe more of a rope consistency.
Twine.
Yeah, you can do that.
So,
but I think what you'll find, Cindra, is that most people are what most people are talking about with either one of those sheep is how impossible it is to obtain any. So you're going to find a lot of in search of and very few I got some. And then the people who got some, it's largely going to be I made twine. And I'm stubborn. It was a labor of love, you know. But that's what I've been noticing over the years, and that's why I just said, I'll just leave that.
So I know. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was going to say, I think that in the rules, there's the whole it has to be pure kind of thing. But those are, at least the two I have, are something, if you could blend them with something else, they'd be okay. It's kind of like quivet or even cashmere, where the fiber is so short. It's it's not pleasant. It's not, you don't get into that zen zone when you're spinning it. It's work. And so if I could ply it with or blend it with something else, that would have been much better. So you might want to consider changing the rules for the haired sheep and allow people to blend it with at some percentage with something else.
It would make it more accessible.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely food for thought. Something that you guys probably don't know yet, unless you've already found the Wiltshire horn and processed it. Deb Robeson has done a project for us, and I can't disclose too much about it, but she has been exploring Wiltshire horn, and she has found that it is actually more wool-like than hair-like. So if you haven't already worked with that, food for thought.
Can't find it.
Well, that's the hard thing. Is going to be finding any of it. These two, the Wiltshire horn and the St. Croix, are notoriously difficult to obtain.
Wiltshire horn is the only one I have left, and I'm just going to leave it for somebody else who wants to do it. But I definitely one thing I really want to do, like I was saying, I have this I can be doing the wrong side. This basket full of stuff over here, and I want to take my basket, and instead of doing a blanket or something like that, I'm going to knit a square and weave a square of every one, and then go ahead and put the rest in a skein as a visual for when I'm demonstrating at fiber festivals or at the fair or the farmers market or whatever we do with our guild. People flipping through, I have a breed book. I've made a page for every single one of the Shave 'em to Save 'em breeds, and I have information about it, and you can flip through and see a cute farm picture of the sheep, and then be able to touch it and see what it is. And one little girl, this last week we had our fair, and she said, I had some yarn there, and she says, was this sheep green? Because it was green fiber. And so, these children don't know. They don't, like I didn't know. And so when they look through and see the personalities or the sheepinalities, like we were saying, of these sheep, and then they can feel it. And the comparison of the two, I did lots of comparison. I was showing them caracal that I spun really thick and down and dirty. It's going to be rug wool. And then I happened to have some dog that I had spun, and it was just baby fine. But then showing them some of the finer breeds, the CVM and things like that. Mm-hmm. It's just, people are blown away. They have no idea that there's all these different things available. So, so mine's going to be educational for not only for myself, but for others. And then I'll go back and spin stuff for sweaters and stuff like that when I finish that. So
that's a beautiful project. I love that you're creating that and have it available at your events. Is everybody in a guild? Is anybody else connected with a guild since Shave 'em to Save 'em or before Shave 'em to Save 'em? Okay. Anything that might be in your futures?
We started, since I came on with my living history job, we're doing fiber workshop out at the ranch, actually. So we'll be doing it like out on site at our 1830s stock farm. So we'll be processing Longwool. And I actually went through Texas Shave 'em to Save 'em, Leicester Longwool provider. And so we're going to be processing Marigold's fleece. We had it set for the spring, but with everything, we only had one person sign up. So we pushed it to the fall so we could do a little more promo. But, and my thing is I want to promote the conservation breeds. As I said, we may do something in the future. We also have the Cochin chickens on the property as well. But also, I think there's a lot of people out there who are scared to process a fleece. They haven't gotten over that hump really of being bold and can I do this in my apartment in downtown Houston, right? And so I'm trying to make this, not only how did it happen in the past, but how can you do it now? And kind of help get more people involved in the Shave 'em to Save 'em program, send them down the same rabbit hole that I went down, maybe not quite as far down as I went, but in the same direction. But pass on that knowledge that, I think sheep are cool. So everybody else should think sheep are cool, whether they're green or, normal colored.
Or have wool or hair.
Wool or hair or.
I find with the novice fleece preparing, that people tend to be really frightened of felting the fleece. And, as a felter, if only it were that easy. That's it. Convincing people that they are not actually going to felt the fleece as soon as they touch it is I think part of the battle. Making felt requires a very specific sort of set of factors. You've got to have temperature changes. You've got to shock it with temperature changes. You've got to have a pH change, and you got to have agitation. And if you have only two of those three, you're not going to get felt. You've got to have all three together, and for most of the breeds in the Conservancy list, making felt requires some muscle. None of this stuff is like Merino and basically just going to fall into felt if you look at it with interest. You've got to put some effort into that. So
except for whatever it was I did,
except for the undercoat for the Barbados black belly.
It just jumped out of the package and felted itself.
The first fleece I processed was a really absolutely filthy CVM that I got at a parking lot sale. And I ruined it. I didn't know what I was doing, and you can felt it.
No, I know you can. It just takes some work. But I'm more curious about where you're getting parking lot sales that deliver raw fleece, because just asking for a friend.
At the Oregon Fleece and Fiber Festival, they have a parking lot sale where people bring in
Fiber Festival,
which is like people just bring their trucks in and you just riffling through bags of fleece on the back of the truck or out of the truck.
Yep,
they're in the parking lot. Yeah.
Okay. My mother lives in Oregon City, and I have now achieved a
I've got family in Good
excellent
River,
reason for paying a visit.
I'm going to go visit. What time of year is it?
It's in October, and they moved it to Albany this year. It's going to be in Albany, just for information.
I think it's the 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Anyway,
shucks.
I did ruin it.
Yeah.
So a big part of the processing the fleece was actually working out the process that
Mhm.
I could handle it in a reasonable amount of time, and now I'm to the point where basically I wash all my fleeces as locks
Mhm.
because that allows me to do whatever I want with it when it's clean.
Mhm.
So,
I usually separate. Well, because I go for these long hauls, I've got to break them apart in order to wash them. Because I have had like a couple of 10-pound Cotswold fleeces go through the house in the not too distant past. So I usually separate them up into like quarters and put them into sweater washing bags to kind of hold them intact and scour them that way. I tried the suet method once. Just for point of prep, I live like about 3/4 mile from Webb's, okay, which is kind of an occupational hazard for sure.
That's dangerous. That is very dangerous.
Very dangerous, and I live right in the middle of it's a city, small city, but it's a really urban area, and I have an old row house, so it's like a mill worker housing or something. We've got a common backyard, and I tried the suet method on a fleece once, and my neighbors were so forbearing. They did not actually tell me that I was never allowed to do that ever again in my entire life. But I could, as soon as I opened that bin and got the whiff of the suet bath, I was like, okay, this is antisocial.
I've done it
with big yards only,
and it's pretty nasty. I have something about shearing. So I know that there are people who talk about the fact that they're having something professionally shorn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is some assumption that means one thing and it might mean something else. So professionally shorn can mean that this person does it for a living, and professionally shorn can mean this person does it for a spinner. So something that I found out quite by accident was when you get a fleece, this is for newbies. If you get a fleece that has second cuts in it, and so you flopped this thing over and you've got these little fuzz balls, Judith McKenzie talks a lot about there's a difference between a second cut and a blade that is dull. And then when the blade's dull, you get little fuzz balls because it's trying to do it by friction rather than cutting it off. But when it's a second cut, something I found out that's just like a miracle thing. You take a section of fleece and you have a tub of water and you put it cut side down for about 10 seconds and then take it back out. The cut parts stay in the water.
Oh, nice trick.
Yeah. And maybe only half of them stay in, but that's half that you don't have to deal with.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes. So if you can keep your fleece intact until you can get a chance to do that, you just put it down, pull it right back out. So the whole fleece doesn't get wet, just that bottom part. They get wet and heavy. And when you pull the fleece off, the wet, heavy stuff stays in the water. And you'll just be swimming with little pieces. And so that's just a tip for new people or people that are experienced. It's cool.
Yeah, that's a great
I discovered
idea.
it by accident. I put something in and I went, oh, wait, I didn't want to. And I pulled it out and I thought, oh, my word, I've discovered something. So I've done it a number of times now. It's really helpful.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That is great. Any other tips you guys have come across aside from not being afraid of
I think if you're going to start with processing raw fleeces, pick one of the small breeds like Jacob or Shetland.
Yeah, Shetlands
do not
they're
start
very
with
manageable. Well, and the other thing again, Shetland's one of my favorite, but it comes in so many colors. There's so many different colors you can get that are
and
just
a micron range too.
And micron range, and they are double coated, but not all of them are double coated. Some of them, like the white one that I just got for 2021, it's barely double coated. But the one I had in 2020, was definitely double coated. And so there's just so much variety, kind of the way you were talking about the Jacob having so many options. I feel like with the Shetland, in a way, you kind of have so many options because most shepherds will keep multiple colors within their herd, but then also within that herd, you have different types of fleeces in each one of those sheep. And the kind of fun thing is when it's a small enough herd that the shepherd has named them all and they're not numbers, they know exactly what you're going to get. So that, Dawn Lad's fleece is going to come like this, pretty much every year. And, this one's going to like this. And you can contact them and you can ask them, I need something I want something skin next to skin soft, or I need something for rug wool, or, and again, variety within all of that. But I think that's one of my favorite things about Shetland is it's so versatile.
I think too, with a breed like Shetland, it's so versatile in what you can do with it after you spin it. So, and it can be spun so many different ways. If you're getting something that is super fine or super coarse, there's only so much you can do to make certain breeds next to the skin wearable. Whereas in Shetland, you can do a cowl, you can do a hat, you can do a sweater, you can add plies. There's a lot of versatility there. So if you're a newer spinner, it's a little less intimidating to do something with a Shetland or a Jacob, whereas
and I think
it's really challenging for a new spinner.
The other word of advice is if you are new to knitting or new to spinning and you've bought Shetland already from your local yarn store, don't think that that's the way Shetland is. So
my God, yeah.
I bought one of so Shetland Wool Week is in September and that's in the UK, but I ended up buying one of the hat packs from Jameson. So I'm going to knit up one of this year's Shetland Wool Week hat. They do a different pattern every year. And I was absolutely astounded when I pulled that wool out and felt it compared to the stuff that I had hand combed and spun myself. And it was night and day. Like the one from Jameson was just so much coarser than what I had spun. And so I think if you're looking into Shetland, that's something definitely to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
And there's also with like ordering from Jameson Smith or something like that, part of that characteristic is what makes a Shetland sweater with all that color work because it's sticky and it sticks to itself. So when you do Shetland, you can manipulate it to go along with those wools. So if you're a good spinner, you can recreate that yarn and do the body of a sweater or something, and then have that color work be in all their luscious colors. But if you are trying to start out with something that is more tender or something that's a little more challenging, newer spinners need to not get frustrated by that. I made the mistake of ordering everything right off the bat, and then I have all this stuff that I would have made different choices if I had gone a little bit slower and thought about it. And I decided I didn't want to go straight from fleece for every single project that I did. Some things I just kind of wanted to get through, and I would maybe order roving or something instead. And if I ordered it again, I would definitely order something that someone else did the processing. I think like some of the more feral breeds, all the vegetable matter in it.
Hog Island.
I just don't want to
naming no names.
Well, okay, so the picture that I was going to show that I didn't get to Cindra in time was that I had this fleece that was brown. And when I opened it up, it looked okay. But when I actually opened it up, in my first 5 minutes, I had a full handful of little tiny, teeny weeny little seeds and chaff and everything. I can't get it out of that fiber. And so I finally ended up just spinning it in. It wasn't falling out. It wasn't picking out. But I learned I love the fiber. I didn't like the vegetable matter. So if I do it again, I'll let somebody else do the processing. And I'll try it again, but I don't want to do that much work.
Well, if we're talking about Hog Island on that one, I let somebody else do the fiber processing, and they did a very good job. And it was still completely full of VM. And
I must have got the same roving.
Everybody was talking about it online, and the best advice I saw was from somebody on the Ravelry group, because we were all like, this vegetable matter is making me crazy. And they said keep a pair of needle nose pliers next to your spinning wheel. And, when you come across it, pull it out, and it's just going to take, spinning my Hog Island, my 4 ounces of that took longer than any other 3 breeds, just because I was having to stop and try to pick it out. But, this way with needle nose tweezers, you can get the VM out without sacrificing the fiber. You're still going to.
I had a good batch. I didn't have any issues with my Hog Island. It was
Oh my gosh.
comb top, and I, every once in a while I'd come up against something, but it was
Mine was literally as I was spinning, every 16th of an inch had something in it. So.
It's like Velcro. I mean, it's insane the amount of VM that stuff can just not only get but hold on to.
My experience with Hog Island was that I ordered roving, and I think it was processed at the farm or on the farm. And I don't like spinning in the grease, and it was so greasy. Just the roving was greasy that I had to wash the roving before I could spin it. And then I had to wash the yarn. Not wash isn't the right word, scour the yarn a second. It was just so greasy. And again, when you go into the book, that's in the book, that it's just really a greasy yarn or greasy fleece. But that was my biggest complaint about once I got it clean, and I didn't dislike the yarn that I got out of it, but I just really don't like working in the grease.
I think that's where we have to adjust our expectations too, because as a spinner, you expect every experience to just be heavenly. You just want this is where you go to relax and make this beautiful thing, and it's not reasonable. It's not. It's like asking children to always be clean. It's just not. It's not reasonable. So once you learn that certain breeds are going to have those challenges, maybe 90% of them will or something, then you go into it with a mindset of okay, this is not just going to be a easy breezy spin, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the knowing ahead of time what you're getting yourself into, or having at least be in the range of expectation. So that helps a lot.
And being able to set it aside.
I'm an absolute neat freak, and so I had some of these that were pretty dirty still. I think the worst one I had was the Navajo churro. It spun beautifully, but it still smelled like farm. And I have horses. Nothing smells better to me than a horse. Dirt, sweat, cow poop, the whole farm experience. But it was just really odorous, and I ended up just spinning. I found that any of those yarns that were kind of a little dirty, I just put a towel on my lap and keep going. You just kind of go through it and then wash it at the end. And again,
I have a horse too, freak, and if a horse person says something smells funky, you can take that to the bank.
I have a couple that I keep in plastic bags too. It is so hairy.
Is that Black Welsh Mountain?
It's this one is caracal. And it's just the hairiest thing you can imagine.
I made a bath mat out of my caracal, a felt bath mat out of it, because I used all the and that I was like, oh, this is a legendary felting fiber, and it was so hairy. I finished felting it, and hair was still sheeting off of it, and I had to sit out on my porch with a tape roller just to try to get some of this hair off of it before I could bring it into the house because it was shedding so much. It was insanely hairy, the caracal.
But now I know I'm not making a cowl out of caracal, so
no.
Well, I don't know. I had this little tuft on my pillow, and it's a caracal lock, and this tuft was twice the size when I put it on because it just kept shedding out. And it's pretty stable now. I think I've got it locked in pretty good, but it kept coming off, and I'd lay on the pillow and I'd come up with like a wool on my head or something, and I have to pull that out.
Very kempy that stuff is. It's not just hair. There's a lot of kemp, I think, and you get that with some of these primitive breeds.
Good, very good discussion, y'all. Thank you so much. We are a little after 3:00, so I want to start leading us to a conclusion. I did have one more question I wanted to throw out there to you. This was Diane's question. What have you learned, if anything? What have you learned about yourselves? You've talked a lot about what you've learned, what you know about the program, what you've learned about these different fibers and the processing. But is there anything you knew that you discovered about yourselves through the course of working through the Shave 'em to Save 'em breeds?
I didn't know that I love processing raw fleeces. I mean, this would never have occurred to me, and I love it. And not only that, but processing raw fleeces is a totally different hobby than actually spinning or felting, or it's like its own thing, and it's so much fun.
I think, like I said, I've been a knitter for a long time, but with 2020 kind of keeping me at home and giving me a project, I would never have thought I would have gone down this rabbit hole 2 years ago, finding how much I enjoy processing fleeces and spinning and learning. I've always liked to learn different things, but this was a little crazy. I'm surprised I'm getting into weaving as well and doing other projects, and it's just a whole crazy world that I didn't know existed for so long. And so I think that's really quite special, and I'm super glad to be a part of it.
I also found that the processing, there's one of the reasons I like spinning, once you get into that place where it's really zen and relaxing, and the processing has a component of that too. And I've started, particularly because of CVM, that's how I got started, combing my fleeces instead of carding them. And there's a zen component to that too. You just get in a rhythm, and what you get off, compared to what you started with, there's that reward that I can't describe it. Nothing else is as rewarding as going from that disgusting filthy fleece to this beautiful, soft, spinnable fiber.
Like a trash bag full of fresh combed bird nests. Oh, it's so nice. Yeah.
Spinner's corn. I think that for me, I didn't know what I didn't know. And to me, it's like having a Mary Poppins bag that says wool on the outside, and you open up the bag and jump in, and then all of a sudden this huge thing opens up and you had no idea. And I'm thinking, okay, there must be a million subjects like this and a million different things. You could do this with cows, you could do it with pigs, pigs, ham, bacon, and so to be kind of not forced into it, but to be led willingly, coerced into doing this and jumping in and finding all these things that I never would have known about. And now, like I said, I care about these sheep. And so that's made me appreciate what people do. It's made me appreciate farmers and people who are willing to take care of these animals and then go through the process. And I'm so glad they have a place now that they can market this little bag of gold that they've got. So
I think that's why everybody calls it going down the rabbit hole, because you take a little dive and you find out that this entire world has opened up on the other end of that tunnel. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, and I think I don't look at the world the same way anymore. I'll look at, clothing, and I'll go places, and I just have a different mindset. Like I was at the Oregon Zoo this past week, and the mountain goats were shedding their winter coats out. And my first thought was, could I spin that? How do I get a piece of that? Who do I need to talk to get a piece of mountain goat?
I'll tell you a funny story. My grandson, when he was about 5.5, my son reads them a Bible story every night. And so he was telling them about people making tents in the Bible and stuff like that. And he said some tents were made out of goat hair. And my daughter over on the couch says, I bet grandma has some goat hair. And he says, I bet she does. But actually hers is more kind of silver. So I'm the grandma with the goat hair. So you do. You look at the world differently, and you look at, you're like, I'm wearing a polyester thing today, and I can hardly stand it. I want to go get myself something woolly. Bring on fall so we can get our woolly stuff back on.
I find myself looking at the animals that are on the Conservancy, and thanks to the Fleece and Fiber Source Book, which is an amazing reference, which gives you the history of the breeds. And I think back about a time before industrialization, before we sort of collectively made the decision that all sheep had to be white and that their staples needed to be like this long, and that basically the animals were forced into our machines in the spinning mills. And if they didn't fit the machine, instead of the machine changing to accommodate them, they just got put out of work. And, that's how they came to be endangered, because all of these things are incredibly valuable animals, which are an important part of human history. And I find myself thinking, what a shame, and how much other stuff are we in the process of losing because we're trying to shove it into some kind of convenient box rather than asking ourselves, maybe we need to change the size or shape of this box. And you start looking at it on a timeline, and it's pretty breathtaking. I mean, we owe a lot of our human evolution to sheep. Sheep made it possible for us to, wool made it possible for humans to live in cold climates. And, and I think a lot of people have forgotten that if they ever knew it.
When I took molecular biology years ago, the instructor said that the diversity was explaining how important diversity is. And she used the sickle cell gene as an example. She said, today it's bad, right? But maybe sometime in the future, we're going to live someplace where there isn't enough oxygen or there's too much oxygen, and we're going to need that gene. And it's the same thing with the sheep, right? When we breed for growing and being able to be sheared at the same time and having this X number of lambs at this amount of time, what genes are we losing that we may need sometime in the future? I mean, the world is changing daily.
I need that Barbados black belly stuff.
I think you've all been converted to conservationalists. I don't have to say anything. You've got all the talking points.
We're all the listeners too.
And this has all just come from our participation. None of us got here as conversation. I mean, we all made that clear. Like, none of us were conservationists of sheep when we arrived here. We've become that way over the journey that, going through this program has taken us on. It's huge. I know the shepherds have gotten a market for their agricultural products and made it more sustainable, but I feel like I've gotten even more than that.
Yeah, this is really beautiful to see and hear. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for putting it together.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
We have a few people that have joined us today. I want to just do a quick shout out to all of those who have been watching or are currently watching that have signed on. Gabrielle Gordon has said hello. She thought it was a great discussion, and she says that she finds it tough to find mills that will felt. Do you know anything about that, Lori? Any suggestions as a felter yourself?
Like industrial felt?
I wouldn't say industrial, although I know that Gabrielle does like to make saddle blankets. She's been working.
The mill I use, it's the Oklahoma mini mill. I know they post some stuff about felting. Like the owner has done it for herself, so they may have something.
Okay.
At that mill, I think they're in Oklahoma City. I think that's where they're close by.
Good tip. Thank you. I will pass that on if she's not still on with us. Jean Ludini says hello, hello. Dee Jones was here, and she says hair sheep are almost all I have available down here on the Gulf Coast.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's a place to find them. And she also used to belong to a spinner's flock in Chelsea, Michigan. She misses being up there, she says. Emily Heisler checked in. She said hello. Lauren Williams is here. Lauren is asking, or has asked actually, about the poster, the very large poster behind me. So this poster, I'm not sure if you guys can make it out. This is actually an image, a very large, I think it might be like 6x6 poster that the United Postal Service created for the Heritage Breed Stamp Release event that we did at Mount Vernon back in May. And normally the Postal Service does not give these posters away, but we were so tickled with it, and they were so tickled with the event at Mount Vernon that they very generously donated it to us.
It
So
says Heritage Breeds.
Thanks, Diane. I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, they are out this year. So get them while they're hot off the presses, because I don't know
Yeah.
how long they will have them available. Oh, Gabrielle's still with us. She says, thanks for the tip.
There's also a mill in Nome, is it Nebraska? They do YouTube, EWE tube channel, and they do felt. I don't know if they only do their own, but they do some felt.
Nome, Nebraska, YouTube. That is
I think
too
it's Nebraska. YouTube.
cute.
Mhm.
Okay. I will definitely Google that. Thank you. So back to Lauren's question. No, I'm sorry, Lauren, the poster is not available. I think we will be keeping that poster indefinitely, but the stamps are available through the Postal Service. And I know that the artist, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name properly, but if you go to the United States Postal Service website, you will find her name. It's Eliza Roth, I think. She, on her own website, has also created some postcards and maybe some larger prints of the individual breeds on the stamps. So that's an option there, Lauren. Suzanne Novotny also says hello, and I think that's everybody who has checked in through the comments. So thanks all for watching. Don't forget, if you are interested in participating or learning more about the Shave 'em to Save 'em program, you can go to our Shave 'em to Save 'em website. It's www.rarewool.org. Let me see if I can throw up that banner here real quick along the bottom. There you go. Rarewool.org. You can sign up to become a fiber artist or a fiber provider and have as much fun and fall as deeply down the rabbit hole as our wonderful guests today.
Do it.
Yeah. What kind of wool is that on the background? Is that a Lincoln?
I believe it is, actually. I'm pretty sure that is a Lincoln. Just want to sink my fingers into it.
It's been
All
very
right.
distracting.
Yeah, everybody's like, yeah, where can I get some of that? Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much. I so much appreciate you joining us today and sharing all you've learned and all your tips and your stories. And we will talk more about the next passport. I'd like to hear more about what your thoughts are on that. So we'll do that offline.
Okay. Thank you for
Thank
inviting
you.
us.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for inviting
You're
us.
very welcome. Enjoy the rest
Bye-bye.
of your day.
Nice to meet you guys.
You too.